This program contains subject matter related to mental health and suicide. If you or anyone you know is in crisis, call or text 988 for free, 24/7, to reach the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Hello and welcome to Elevating Voices, a roundtable discussion series by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, where we bring together members from diverse communities to uncover the unique mental health challenges they face and discuss ways to solve them. I'm your host, Vic Armstrong. We know that a sense of community can greatly benefit our mental health, especially for young people. But to truly connect, they have to be able to see themselves in their peers, their mentors, and even in the media they consume. How do we build that kind of community? That's what I'll be talking about today with a group of innovators from UCA WAVES, Youth Mental Health Collaborative, a national nonprofit organization by, from, and for the Asian American Pacific Islander community. Before we dive into this conversation, I'd like to go around and give everyone a quick moment to introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Dr. Chen.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation. And my name is Naialie Chen. I'm the founder and executive director of UCA WAVES. I'm also a mother of 5 children and a nurse and an advocate.
Thank you. Let's go to Dr. Tu.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm very happy to be here. I'm currently a child and adolescent psychiatry fellow at UCLA, and I am the current secretary of the board at UCA WAVES. And I was very lucky to be pulled into WAVES by Lily back in the day.
Well, thank you so much. It is a pleasure to have you here with us. And finally, let's go to Naialie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Naialie. I am a sophomore pre-nursing student at UNC Chapel Hill. I am majoring in medical anthropology and minoring in health and society. And over the summer, I had the opportunity to intern at UCA WAVES. There I saw a lot of advocacy with mental health.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for being with us today. We are so thrilled to have you here. So let's start first things first. So Lily, I'd like to go to you first, if you don't mind. Can you tell us, what does UCA WAVES stand for? And can you share a little bit about how you founded the organization?
Yes, be happy to. So UC stands for United Chinese Americans, and WAVE stands for Wellness and Advocacy, Voices, Education, and Support. Our organization was founded actually 2016 to address the unmet needs, mental health needs of the AAPI community, particularly youth. We bring together dedicated volunteers, professionals to deliver culturally responsive education, support, and advocacy. Our main focus are parents. We also actively engage with the youth. So we try to engage generational members to have this dialogue.
Very good. And one of the things I think that amazes me and impresses me so much about your program is the fact that it is a program where you saw a need in the community and you came together as a community to address that need. And that's one of the things that we focus on with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, is trying to work with communities to create resources. But one of the things that we also often encounter is that one of the difficulties sometimes in being able to create those resources is that a lot of the researchers or a lot of the clinicians that are trying to serve these communities are not actually from these communities. So it's really heartening to see that you have so much input from your community in addressing the needs of your community. So I want to address this next question, Jennifer, to you, if you don't mind. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey to becoming a psychiatrist? Because again, it gives you kind of a unique positioning around being able to address the needs of the community you're attempting to serve.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. I think for a long time, I knew I wanted to go into medicine, but I didn't really have mental health on my radar. I think I was just checking all the boxes, trying to achieve as much as I could until college, when in junior year, Sadly, I lost a friend unexpectedly to suicide. And so I think since then, that was the crucible moment where I realized there was this huge unmet need for mental health support and advocacy among my community. And since then, I just became more curious about mental health, and psychiatry within medicine seems like the right specialty to address that unmet need. And then also to really learn about people's stories, dive into communities and social structures. So I think I found my passion through that. But yeah, I still carry my friend with me.
So in both your lived experience and the research that you do, what would you say are some of the most common mental health challenges that American youth are facing today? Because I will tell you, it wasn't lost on me that when you started to talk about your journey, you mentioned working hard and checking the boxes. And one of the things that I find consistently when I talk to young people, especially in the AAPI community, is this sense of drive and achievement. And that can also, in and of itself, take a toll on your mental well-being. So what are some of the things that you're seeing that are common mental health challenges for Asian American youth?
I think that's such a great question. And of course, I have my own personal experience. But to start off with, I think it's important to also recognize the AAPI community is so broad and diverse. And each community comes from a different kind of diaspora, their own challenges and struggles, and forms of resilience. Personally, my parents immigrated, and so I'm technically second generation Chinese American. And so I think for a lot of people in my situation, there are a lot of parental pressures to achieve growing up, and those can be really internalized, and it can be really great and helpful, and then also can place a lot of pressure on one's mental health. I've certainly faced that occasionally growing up too, and have had to reconcile with that myself. I think AAPI youth, just kind of painting in very general terms, but of course not true for everyone, can face forms of social isolation that are quite unique, feeling like an outsider in both American communities as well as Chinese American or Chinese communities, and not really feeling a place of belonging quite as easily as other people. So that's kind of a unique flavor of social loneliness and isolation.
Can you say a little bit more about that isolation? Because I'm assuming that you're also talking about some of the racial discrimination that Asian Americans face, in addition to some of the other challenges. But can you say a little bit more about what some of those challenges are? I'm especially interested, and maybe Naialie, you may have a perspective on this as well, because I'm especially interested in those familial and cultural dynamics that contribute to some of the pressures that young people face.
Yeah, so a lot of challenges I see as a youth or as a second generation from with parents who are refugees and immigrants. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of quiet neglect and silence. Emotions, there isn't any space for emotions to be talked about. And so this often clashes with, the second generation, where we see that everybody's so open, but then it clashes with our parents because we don't really have that space to talk about emotions and how we really feel and what's going on. So I would say quiet neglect and silence would be one of the biggest factors.
Yeah. Now, is that something that you see, because we know that the AAPI community is not a monolith. There are a lot of different cultures and nuances, but is that something that you kind of see across most of the AAPI community, that generational divide around being willing to talk about mental health?
Generally, yes. But I'm Hmong, so that falls in like Southeast Asian demographic. But I would say we usually see a lot of silence due to I guess the older generations coming here to America from war, trauma, displacement. A lot of that shapes how emotions are communicated. And often these parents don't want to burden their children with all this trauma. So they choose not to say nothing.
Fascinating. So Lily, let's bring you back into the conversation for a minute, because you're also a mother of 5 children. And so you also have a perspective about generationally what it looks like, the way that you were taught to talk about or not talk about mental health, and then the way that you are socializing your children around that. Can you talk a little bit from your perspective about the generational divide?
Yes, I love to. So thank you, Naialie. You bring up the parent-child misunderstanding in different places in terms of mental health, right? So as a first-generation immigrant here in the United States, and I'm a nurse, right? So I did not have any mental health education. I was getting my education in China. So and I moved here. I got my education here, and then I never realized actually a lot of the struggles that my children went through, including some of the things that Jennifer and Leah was talking about, is identity, that they feel being other. They are saying can be very subtle microaggression, right? Oh, your food smells this way, or your eyes are slanted. And then one of my children actually was driving to school. One of her peers she knew from school, and using like a C word, driving back. And interesting is that even though it happens back in high school, it was only like several weeks ago she called me, and then she had this flashback of those traumatic experience of being racially profiled, right? So absolutely. So I would think that lack of knowledge around mental health knowledge, if I didn't study mental health, I didn't have the language to describe that in my household, which is so true, right? And how do we expect our children have that language? Like one of the cultural expectation is that we kind of, we don't talk about these things, we don't talk about feelings. Our love is expressed by physical love, give you food, shelter, and that's how we express love. Not that we don't love our children. We just never realized the importance of emotional and mental health. Number one, we didn't have the language. And number two, we are first-generation immigrant. I didn't know what it was like when they grew up in high school. It's not until later on they went to college, actually, for them to even have the language to describe it. And that's my personal experience. And I also wanted to piggyback on what Naialie said about the refugee immigrants, right? So, because I have done study in Korean refugee that, they were a very big part of our community, and actually was a part of the panelists, as you know, at our Roots and Resilience conference. We have 2 refugee youth came to talk about it. So from their lived experience, from my own research, it was very, very common that they suffocated, suppress the feelings is one of the major themes from the youth. And number one is that they just overwhelmed by the burdens. Naialie, you talk about the parents didn't want to burden the children. The children also didn't want to burden the parents. That's a consistent theme we heard, is that, oh, my mom and dad has been trying so hard coming to the United States and, gone through war in a refugee community. For us, is like, even we are privileged enough to have education, but it was really difficult being an immigrant. We have to overcome so much more challenges. And as some of my friends said, I really still truly believe that we have to work like so much harder to achieve what we wanted to, because a lot of barriers, the language and understanding the culture is huge, right? Uprooted from our own culture, from my family, from my relative, my parents still live in China, So anyway, so the children don't want to bother the parents as well. So did you see that, didn't have the language, didn't want to burden the children or parents, and then the racial discrimination. And one of the other themes that our youth that I heard from our youth, the Korean refugee, is that, the model minority myth, right? I'm sure that Jennifer and Nadia, you can talk about this, but I wanted to bring this up because not only as Asian American, are they Asian or are they American? Then the third identity is a refugee, because a lot of expectations for the Asian American, particularly you, is like, you guys doing well, you got your PhD, you got your MD, you're well off, we're kind of automatically got checked off from the research, from the stories, but I think that, I promise I'm going to stop here after this, but I think I really want to bring this point is that the mental health challenges of suicide, obviously affected by so many factors, right? Like Jennifer said, monolithic stereotype, it really affected our youth. Like one of the Korean refugees said, people don't understand. My parents never navigated U.S. system, right? Economic-wise, educational-wise. So they never have any role model going to school. I mean, Ania, I know that you have siblings, maybe can set you some examples, but a lot of Korean youth, they never knew how to apply for college or how to, what are the career availability they are, and that they have to help their children. I'm sorry, they have to help their parents to babysit, work, 3 jobs. One of the youth said she has to use her jobs. She worked for two part-time jobs so that she can buy snacks for her younger siblings. Just broke my heart, right? Why are you going to high school full-time? But anyway, so I just wanted to say, and the second point to that point is that, and then we just have a meeting yesterday with our own team members about community health workers, right? So, and this is what I recently actually noticed, and from our own secondary data analysis, is that we're looking at the social determinants of mental health, right? So, and then the finding was that the studies, I talk about underrepresentation, right? So our researchers has looked at use one of the largest data set of the nation and look at the AAPI. Guess what? There's only 80 people participating in the study in North Carolina. So a lot of data we couldn't find. But what we could find, just based on these 80 people from North Carolina, is that even though Asians in North Carolina have a higher education, higher income, but they have less realized access to care. That means that there must be other factors that contribute to lack of access and not seeking help. I don't know if that makes sense. And that was very true, like a mental health. People, just the conversation yesterday, that's what we experienced. Like actually people who experience mental health challenges are also suicidal. Are those. Sorry about the long
No,
answer
that's fine.
to your question.
I think you brought up some great points, because one of the things you talked about is not having not accessing care. And one of the things that I have learned from my experience is that even when we make resources available to communities, oftentimes those resources don't resonate with the communities that we're trying to introduce them to, which is why it makes so much sense for an organization like UCA WAVES to be developed, because you can create resources that speak directly to your community. You also, though, talked about we spent the last several minutes talking about that divide between the willingness of a younger generation to embrace the conversation around mental health and the older generation often not being willing to. But you also, and I will say, my experience, I had a chance to attend your conference just recently, and we'll talk a little bit about that. My experience when I have been in your presence around your organization is that I see younger people and older people in that space that are opening up and talking about the conversation. But I recognize that those are people who get it and people who are sympathetic to the cause. My question, though, is how much of a challenge is it to get those older people to buy in, to lean in, to join your cause, and to be willing to advocate. I want to get at least two perspectives, but Lily, I want to hear from your perspective. But then I also, Naialie, I'd like to hear from your perspective too, as a younger person, what that feels like.
Sure, Victor, is hard. It is really hard because I think that we face many, many challenges, right? But the biggest challenge is a stigma that is consistent from all sectors, providers, researchers, advocates, parents themselves. And this is the conversation we talk about it every day, all the time, right? How can we destigmatize mental health, especially in, older people will be my generation, right? So thank you so much for the parents and grandparents and the uncles and aunts. We are tackling head on. So I think we approach it, with WAVE is that advocacy, right? So we'll advocate through data. The data can be quantitative data, like we do research, the typical research will understand, but very, very community engaged research, right? We don't do it without them. We're doing with them, which is UC WAVE as well. And we do it with the qualitative data, which is the life experience, the short stories. We need, these stories touches people. We all know that, right? So then that is the advocacy. We advocate, obviously, advocate for our needs on the policy level that we wish to do more, which is so overstretched. So that's why we partner with, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Partner with you. You have been a tremendous partner in advocating for AAPI community. I want to thank you for that, and for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention as well. So that's a coalition, right? Advocacy takes the whole society effort. The voices will try to amplify youth voices, like a situation like this with Naialie, with Jennifer, and with our filmmaking, right? So we all know that it's hard to go through some very traumatic experience, especially suicide, for maybe more than once, or let alone multiple times. So, and we also wanted to amplify all the diaspora for Asian American Pacific Islanders, right? So making a movie, amplify voices, and then again, during the conference, we engage the youth to amplify their voices, whether for the research or through storytelling. And then educations, we do mental health first aid training, and we do peer support. Support is the last one, which is support is a peer support. And we'll do all that, like I said, in the beginning, with a cultural lens. We provide all that in Chinese language or Cantonese. Unfortunately, we'd love to do more language, but I think I need to get another PhD in maybe Arabic or, I don't know, Vietnamese. So we would love to help more people, but we need to start where we are and the most importantly, from our own community. These are the parents. That's where the strength are coming from. They want to do it, not that I want to do it, right? Well, obviously, I have lived experience. Of course, I want to do it, but one person is not enough. We have to empower the entire community. So this is what the community wants. So I think this is where we can do, like you mentioned, that you have very deep understanding about the cultural needs, is that, for example, when I interview the Korean refugees, they know that they need to go to see the doctor. They know that there's translation service. You know what they say? I will not even go to the hospital unless so-and-so is coming with me. They have to have someone they trust from their own community. I think online translation, all that is great. It is a huge investment on many parts. But I just want to bring up the very hugely important issue of trust, that even though is a great progress in recognizing that, but that's still not enough because of the trust factor. So that's what I'm going to say about how to tackle that.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I do want to go back to Naialie for just a minute, though. Naialie, as you are in these spaces where you are, you have this shared space for younger people and in the older generation. And again, there's this seemingly this divide in willingness to talk about mental health. So I guess there's two parts to my question. One is, what does it feel like when you're in that space, when you do see all generations coming together, having these conversations? But then I guess the other part is, as a younger person, I know you can't speak for all young people, but as a younger person, what would you like to see from the older generation regarding being willing to have these conversations?
Yeah, I think it's great seeing two generations come together and having like an open conversation. But that's only like a small amount of people who are willing to, change their perspective of what mental health is and actually accept emotions and be open to talk about it. But I would like to see increased awareness, but I know that cultural norms and language barriers are such a big challenges to get through. So I guess just openness and just parents being more open to talk about, how they feel and ask if their children are okay or how they're doing. Just simple things like that. Yeah.
I have to tell you, I have to applaud the youth, because it has to be difficult when you are wanting to have these conversations, and the conversations you want to have are about the challenges to your mental well-being. But then you come up against oftentimes a generation that's not open to having the conversation. So I applaud your courage in continuing to fight this fight, and I applaud the work that you all are doing. And I want to stay with this theme for a minute, if we can, around the cultural sensitivity. Lily, you had mentioned how much you appreciate AFSP partnership, and I have to tell you that what I have appreciated is you have allowed me, and you've allowed AFSP to be in the room and not lead these conversations, but you've allowed us to be in the space and to learn. And so we recognize as an organization the importance of being led by the communities that we're attempting to serve, because those communities understand best how they're willing to access service. So I have a question. I want to direct this question, Jennifer, to you. Why does cultural sensitivity matter when we're talking about psychological and mental well-being?
It's funny you ask this question, because I'm currently operating in the mental health care system in an academic center, and cultural sensitivity, while we all try our best to uphold that, it can be really difficult for like a very large organization to do. So that's just to preface. It doesn't answer why it's so important, but it's just very lacking in a lot of spaces. I think it's important because I think America is a country made up of many different kinds of people, like immigrants, refugees, descendants of immigrants. And if we only focus on a majority perspective and cater to that in terms of mental health services, we're actually denying adequate care to so many different communities. And I think from a majority perspective, that can be very difficult to understand, to like wrap your head around. But from a member of minoritized communities perspective, it's very intuitive, actually. There are just things in mental health, education and services that don't align necessarily sometimes. Right. So in order for mental health services to be effective, they do have to be culturally sensitive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point, because one of the things that I find in working with different communities is that not all communities have been educated and socialized the same way around having conversations about mental health, and absolutely not having conversations about suicide. And also the way that communities think that suicide and mental health impact them can be different from one community to the other. One of the challenges that I have experienced personally in working with the AAPI community, and this is a pretty sensitive question at least from my perspective, but like we will do, for example, I've done work with around AAPI Awareness Month. And part of the feedback I have gotten at times is that, we focus on the Asian American, but we're not really focusing on the Pacific Islander part. And so a lot of what I have experienced in trying to create these resources around cultural sensitivity is that it can be very difficult because there is such a broad range of cultures and ethnicities and just so many nuances in the Asian community. So with you all creating these resources for the Asian community, that's got to be difficult for you as well. Lily, what has that been like? Trying to create resources, but you understand better than I do about the challenge of trying to create resources that all of the Asian American and Pacific Islander community can see themselves in.
Yeah, this is such a great question. You asked the questions that we're really struggling with, and also is super important, right? So first of all, as I mentioned earlier, we really wanted to serve everybody. So I always said that my community is wherever I am, right? So you know that I also teach at North Carolina Central University. My students in my community, particularly community of color. And I wished I could speak more languages. And so, but we have to start somewhere. Because we have to start somewhere, because anywhere you see any minority communities, I know that there's not enough or not at all resources in that community, such as in Chinese American community, right? So for example, I would say, fortunately and unfortunately, UC WAVE is the organization that people come to when they want to tap into the AAPI community. But we also know that our culture and our cultural background and our language is mostly in Chinese, right? So we do work with everybody, obviously, right? So this is like, for example, if you wanted to focus on the strength of a community or any kind of community organization or programming, I think I would say, yes, great. You guys are doing just help one community at a time, helping Chinese at a time when we have the resources we're going to help. I know that there's a lot of other organizations, maybe in other parts of the country and in North Carolina as well, right? But this is our community. When you just start, we can't just say, well, we're going to start. Somebody is like just several weeks ago, this tragedy happened in one of the campuses again. They reach out to us because this is from our community, right? So we're glad that we were able to really help our community, but we're not going to say, well, we're just going to wait until we have all the ducks on the duck deck or something, right? And then we're going to start serving. We have to start something somewhere, and that's wherever you are. That's a community. It's very challenging. Obviously, everybody know it's very expensive. People always say that it's expensive, which is true. But I wanted to also, people forget, or sometimes I forget, is the tremendous power within the community that cannot be measured by dollars. I have been told consistently, I said, oh my gosh, you guys are doing the work that 3 or 4 times of the resources what other organizations will need from the funders, right? I said, because number one, we're passionate about doing this work, because number 2 is we tap into the power of volunteers and advocates within the community. So that means the money is going to help greatly. We're so incredibly grateful to help us, fly faster, because we can't wait. We're in the life-saving, journey, right? But on the other hand, we absolutely, that alone is not enough. And that's the untapped power and resources within the community that I think a lot of people probably don't see. Maybe, myself, sometimes I thought, oh my gosh, I was constantly surprised and amazed by our volunteers. We had a meeting yesterday, like a peer support leaders, lunch meeting, 10 of us. Every day I was amazed. It's like, oh my gosh, you guys, I said, I am so sorry. I'm so wrong about this. It's because they inform me and then we learn together. I think this will be like, I'm learning is difficult. I think this is something that is about advocacy. That's about community engagement. So that would be the second point that I want to bring up. Each community have their own power.
Yes. Yeah. Well, what I love too, Lily, about your approach and the approach of UCA WAVES, and I've had an opportunity to be at a few of your events now. And, you mentioned you have to start where you are, and you want to build these resources that communities can trust and relate to. But what I love about the way that you've approached it is you have led the work because, as you should, because it is work that's designed to serve your community. But you've been so open to welcoming organizations like AFSP and saying, bring your resources alongside us. And so we come in not to, we're not the lead. We're not trying to tell you how best to serve your community, but we are able to bring our own experience, our expertise, and come alongside you. And I've seen you in the same spaces. You have DHHS in the room, you have local county government in the room, you have businesses in the room. And all of this is this way that you have invited all of these resources to come into the space, but to be guided by the community, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. One of the things I've had the opportunity to experience most recently was your conference, Roots and Resilience, the Power of Data and Stories to Advance AAPI Youth Mental Health. Now, I have to tell you, one of the things I loved about it right off the bat was I love the title. Now, it's long, but what I love about the title is when you talk about Roots and Resilience, that immediately to me speaks of lived experience and the experience both historically and now, the experience that we're currently living, and the resilience and the strength of your community. But then the second part, the power of data and stories to advance AAPI youth mental health. Again, you're talking about clinical expertise because you are talking about data, but you're also acknowledging the power of stories. And I think that to me is what has been so powerful about your approach, is that you have combined all of these resources the same way that you're inviting these formal system resources into the space. You're also making sure that you focus on the cultural, historical strength and resilience of your community. You're focusing on the power of storytelling. You're focusing on the energy and power and harnessing the energy and power of young people, but you're also talking about the importance of data. Can you share a little bit more about that and why the data and the stories are equally important when it comes to addressing mental health solutions? Why is it important for us to have both the data, but also to have those stories about this is what is actually happening on the ground in our community? And Lily, I'm going to give you a break. Jennifer, how about you take that one?
That's such a great question. And I totally want to just echo what you said about Lily bringing all these people together. I think that speaks actually to why it's so important to have both the data for objective evidence for need and for reasons to dedicate funding to certain causes. And then also the stories to provide that human connection and the emotional motivation to actually act on those objectives. So both are absolutely crucial. And I think it's hard to bring them together. And that's something that Lily and UCA WAVES has been working very hard to do effectively.
Yeah, Lily, anything you would add to that?
Yes, thank you so much, Jennifer. And you have been, I was just going to say, reach out to Jennifer. So Jennifer has been such an incredible researcher. I think one of the reasons was that if I have said this, right, only 0.17% of the National Institute of Health funding allocated to AAPI between, I think, 1995 to 2018. Right. So, and philanthropy is 0.2% to the Asian American Pacific Islanders. So, and what does that mean is that you can't really advocate effectively if you don't know from the data, like a very simple, like I mentioned earlier, right? If there's only 80 people from North Carolina participate in the survey, or the county usually community health surveys, like much less proportionally than our population, right? Like, for example, the county I'm living is about 9 or 10%, 9%, only 2.3%. You can't really, science is science, right? So you can't really guide your intervention, inform your programs and things like that. So I think that's incredibly important. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm a public health nurse, right? So we always wanted to use that lens. However, data is cold, right? Data are numbers, and data cannot tell human stories. I mean, cannot tell lived experience, right? So we also need to bring, each number has a human being behind. So we want to bring the humanistic approach to the data. So that's why lived experience is just as important.
Absolutely. Yeah, you made such a great point about the data, because one of the things that I find in most minoritized communities, especially in communities where there's not been a lot of conversation around things like suicide, the data makes it relevant because it's hard to say suicide does not impact my community when I can show you the data that says it does. And so that makes it relevant. And then tying those stories to it, it's hard to look away when you have a person, a human being, telling you their story of their pain and their triumph, their pain and their recovery. So I agree that the two things together just are a powerful combination. One of the places also that I have seen firsthand in my recent interactions with your organization to see this power of storytelling is in the war, the silent war, Asian American reckonings with mental health, the documentary. And so I had a chance at your conference to view that documentary, which you were actually executive producer of. And again, for folks out there, it's called The Silent War, Asian American Reckonings with Mental Health. So Lily, what role do you think the media plays in shaping how people think and talk about mental health? Because I can see this, the power of this film being something that touches people.
Yeah, thank you so much. I always think that I'm a community member, want to contribute to the cause. I always believe that story is powerful because we're tackling stigma. It's really hard. People might not buy into the numbers, right? And that is hard. So I think the film is powerful to tackle because people can relate to people. People can relate to the stories. And then we also, tremendous gratitude. I did very, very little part to director Fu Chang. It has been 5 years of labor of love and quote unquote suffering. It was a really difficult journey, right? So but anyway, so Jennifer, you were part of it as well. You were one of the person talk about model minority myth. Actually, thank you so much. And so many, many other people. I think that, as I alluded before, that when we want to tackle mental health challenges and suicide, it can be very triggering and traumatic. One of the character, actually, the leading character had said that, like I shared during the conference, is that one of the most powerful themes that director Chang has filmed, and he was so devastated he forgot to turn in the audio. So I'm glad that we have a backup audio in this interview. He knew he couldn't do it again. But that said, this was the best interview I've ever done in my close to 30 years as a filmmaker. So that's another aspect of the film. And then also the quality. He's an award-winning director and involves 60 individuals in this film and diaspora of Asian Americans. The Chinese, the Sikh community, Indian American. Of course, we would love to do more, but we have actually a lot more materials and more plans in the future. I think it was just very, very just well done. And our Allison's assistant director and Changfu's wife, also the assistant director. This also speaks to the power within the community, right? Dr. Chang is our community member, volunteer as well. And that we know that we have so much talent as well within the community. Why not we just use a film to do that? So this is who doesn't want it to go to a good, watch a good film, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's the most powerful way to destigmatize mental health.
And I have to say, Lily, I know you said that you had very little to do with this, but I was in the room when Dr. Chong-Fu Chong acknowledged how instrumental you were in making this documentary happen. So give yourself some credit. You had a lot to do with making this happen. But as a result of it, and again, I had the chance to watch it, and I saw both. I saw how powerful it was in how it resonated with me, but I also saw people in the room who were being moved and impacted by seeing these real life stories being told on the screen. Do you feel like you're seeing this impact stigma and people's willingness to open up and talk about it?
I certainly hope so. I think we expect it to be well received just because of such a forbidden topic. This is a film. A lot of people, I can say, a lot of people came in for the film. I have met audiences who lost their child to suicide, and the friend brought another parent couple who also lost their child to suicide that I didn't know. So I knew that is impactful. And then also, obviously, our friend Pooja, who is an Indian American, and during the panel, she has said that it's the first time that she see herself in these narratives, because before, as an Asian American, I don't think that she has identified or connected before. This is what we like to see, and then we hope to see. Again, back on the data again. So I'm always thinking about, okay, how are you going to evaluate the impact of the film, right? So are you going to do a survey or something? But these are the narratives. So we yet to kind of determine. But, and a piece of great news, actually. The film won a Best Picture, Best Director award for the Columbia, Maryland Film Festival. It's only one of the, hopefully more awards the film is going to get. And then we have a number of people wanting to do the film screening. So we wanted to spread the word. Now this is, the data or not, survey or not, we just wanted to touch more people. And then I hope it will continue, of course.
Absolutely. One other thing I did notice when I was at your conference recently is there were a lot of researchers and people in the AAPI community who are what I would consider heavyweights in this field, who were at your conference here in North Carolina. And to me, it says a couple of things. I mean, one, it does speak to the respect that people have for the work that you all are doing, but it also speaks to the passion that people have about this work. Because if you have people who are very busy, have very big roles, very big jobs, who are willing to travel to be a part of your event and to share information at your conference, it says a lot about the commitment that the AAPI community has made to really trying to create resources for your community. So I applaud you for that. And I applaud, all the folks that were willing to come and be a part of your most recent conference. I felt so blessed to be there. I learned so much, but I think one of the things that stays with me is just how welcoming your community has been. You introduced me as your brother, which means a great deal to me. So I appreciate the opportunity to join with you all. I do. As we start to wrap this up, I want to come back to Naialie. Naialie, my question for you is, what advice do you have for young people who want to talk about their mental health challenges with their peers or with their family, but they're not sure where to start? Do you have any advice for them?
That is such a good question. I would say just open the door. Just express how you feel. I would say reach out. Reach out for help. Reach out to talk. Tell a friend. Tell anyone. I feel whenever I talk to my friends about my problems, I feel so relieved after, and ask them like, oh, like, what do you think I should do? You know, just be open. Don't be afraid to talk about how you're feeling, because others would probably feel the same too, you know, so just open that door.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And before we end our conversation, I want to give one last opportunity. Lily, Jennifer, Naialie, before we wrap, is there anything else that you'd like to share or that you'd like for the audience to know?
Just a really short thought. I've been thinking a lot about how you really don't need formal training in mental health to be a strong support and advocate for your loved ones. Like recently in the hospital, I've seen how like security guards, custodians, just everyone in our personnel have been going above and beyond and offering support to patients who are struggling. So I'm like, you know, you don't need fancy training to do this. All you need is a really kind heart. And that's been really touching for me to see. So just wanted to share that thought.
Well said. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to say that please know that for anyone who's listening, knowing that you're not alone, that many people experience challenges for the parents. I know that it's hard, but I think your children love to hear you tell them, I love you verbally. And what they need the most is active listening, non-judgmental listening without giving advice. And you're doing the best job you can. And for the second generation, Jennifer and Leah and all, we know how hard it is right now living as a second generation Asian American, Chinese American. And we're here to try to learn as fast as we can, understand you as fast as we can. And also teach us how to become a better parent or grandparents. And it's never too late. And there's always hope, and the recovery is possible. Just like Naialie said, open for the parents and for the second generation, or just talk about it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Naialie, any final thoughts?
I would just say be kind to everyone, especially with everything going on. Yeah.
Very good. Good advice. Thank you so much. I want to thank my guests for being with me today, Dr. Lily Chen, Dr. Jennifer Tu, Naialie Lor. Thank you all so much for being with me, and thank our audience for joining us today. And as always, please know that you matter, your life matters, your pain matters. You are not alone. And we want you to be here tomorrow and every day after that. Thank you for joining us for Elevating Voices. If you're not familiar, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, or AFSP, is America's leading suicide prevention organization and the largest private funder of suicide prevention research, with local chapters in all 50 states, DC, and Puerto Rico. AFSP offers education, law support, and advocacy programs and events nationwide, including the Out of the Darkness Walks. You can learn more about AFSP at afsp.org. If you or anyone you know is in distress, call or text 988 for free 24/7 to reach the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.